One day, King Ben-Hadad of Aram mustered his entire army and besieged Samaria. As a result, there was a great famine in the city. The siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung sold for 5 pieces of silver. But Elijah the prophet said,
"This is what the Lord says. By this time tomorrow in the markets of Samaria, 6 quarts of choice flour will cost only 1 piece of silver. 12 quarts of barley grain will cost only 1 piece of silver."
The officer assisting the king said to the man of God,
"That couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven."
But Elijah replied,
"You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it."
Meanwhile, the Lord had caused the Aramean army to hear the clatter of speeding and chariots and the galloping of horses and the sounds of a great army approaching.
"The king of Israel has hired the Hittites and Egyptians to attack us,"
they cried to one another. So they panicked and ran into the night, abandoning their tents, horses, donkeys, and everything else, as they fled for their lives. Now there were 4 men with the leprosy sitting at the entrance of the city gates. They asked each other,
"Why should we sit here waiting to die? We will starve if we stay here, but with the famine in the city, we will starve if we go back there. So we might as well go out and surrender. If they let us live, so much the better. But if they kill us, we will have died anyway."
So at the twilight the 4 men set out for camp of the Amorians. But when they came to the edge of the camp, no one was there. So they went into one tent after another, eating and drinking wine. They carried off silver and gold and clothing and hid it. Finally they said to each other,
"This is not right. This is a day of good news, and we aren't sharing it with anyone. Come on, let's go back and tell the people at the palace."
So they went back to the city and told the gatekeepers what happened.
"We went out to the Aramean camp, and no one was there. The horses and donkeys were tethered, and the tents were all in order, but there wasn't a single person around."
So 2 chariots with horses were prepared, and the king sent out scouts to see what happened to the Aramean army. They all went out the way to the Jordan River, following a trail of clothing and equipment that the Arameans had thrown away in their mad rush to escape. The scouts returned and told the king about it. Then the people of Samaria rushed out and plundered the Aramean camp. So it was true that 6 quarts of choice flour were sold that day for 1 piece of silver, and 12 quarts of barley grain was sold for 1 piece of silver, just as the Lord had promised. The king appointed his officer to control the traffic at the gate, but he was knocked down and trampled to death as the people rushed out. So everything happened exactly as Elijah, the man of God, had predicted. Something we learn from this story is that, like the lepers, when we find out good news or God blesses us, we should share it and not keep it all for ourselves.